Thanks again for tuning into Moonshine Gaming. Today we're going to be discussing the top 5 rarest and most expensive Nintendo Switch games. Now, as per usual, we have a couple parameters we're going to be following for this list. We won't be including any collector's editions or big box editions, and we will be using North American complete in-box pricing. So what this means is that the game box and the game cartridge and any inserts will be included for the prices on this list. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up, we've got Outlast, Bundle of Terror. This is a survival horror game that was released in 2019. This bundle, put out by Limited Run Games, includes Outlast and the Whistleblower DLC. You play as journalist Miles Upshur, and it's your job to uncover the mysterious activities at Mount Massive Asylum, which is run by the Murkoff Corporation. You've been informed by a whistleblower, who you'll learn about more in the DLC, that some strange tests on inmates are taking place. Outlast is unlike many other survival horror games, in that you're utterly defenseless against the insane inmates and vile creatures that lurk within the institution. It reminds me of the old Nemesis system sometimes from the Resident Evil games, in which unforgiving antagonists chase you throughout the game. Even a common enemy can put you down in a couple of strikes here, with no chance of resistance. Your only choices are to flee or hide. You do, however, have a couple of evasive maneuvers at your disposal. The one tool you're given in the game is a camcorder, which you can use to record or look through for night vision mode. But be careful not to use it too much because you can run out of batteries. Luckily, there are plenty of spare batteries hidden throughout the game. This game has great graphics, sound, and lighting effects. However, for me, the game kind of feels like a walking simulator. Without combat or puzzle solving, I found myself a bit bored at times. But if you're into the hide and seek gameplay, this is definitely worth checking out. The current market value of this game is $188. Next up, we've got The Messenger. This is a 2D action platforming game that was released in 2018. In the game, you play as a young ninja who's venturing through a cursed world after a demon army besieges his village. You need to deliver a scroll, which is paramount to your clan's survival. The game has smooth controls, clever dialogue, a great sense of humor, and an incredible chiptune soundtrack. In the first half of the game, it feels like you're playing a modernized version of a classic side-scrolling platformer. Kinda gives me Ninja Gaiden vibes, and I definitely think this was an inspiration for this portion of the game. In the beginning, you can run, jump, flip, and swing your sword horizontally, and you'll start to unlock new mechanics as the game progresses, such as cloud jump. This replaces the standard double jump with a mechanic which allows an additional jump if you're able to hit something with your sword. You can also unlock a wingsuit, grappling hook, and more. Once you hit the halfway point in the game, it changes from a classic side-scrolling platformer more to a Metroidvania. There'll be no major mechanic additions or upgrades, and you'll be forced to backtrack a ton and complete a bunch of fetch quests. I find the second half of the game a bit boring, mostly due to the fact that all the great rewards have already been discovered. Like I said at the beginning, the gameplay is really smooth, but I think it would have been much better if they continued with the style from the first half of the game. However, if you play this game, I do urge you to push through the second half because there are some really amazing stages in the back half of the game, and also the story gets surprisingly deep. The current market value of this game is $193. Now, a quick word from the sponsor of this video. No, I'm just kidding, nobody's sponsoring this tiny channel. But if you guys enjoy content like this, you can consider subscribing to Moonshine Gaming, as we put out video game related videos every single Thursday. Back to the list. Next up, we've got Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle. This is an action hack and slash game that was released in 2018. The game includes the base version of AOT 2 and the DLC. The game's based on the anime of the same name, with the first 50 chapters being covered in the AO2 base game, and then chapters 51 through 90 being covered in the Final Battle DLC. In the game, you're fighting to save humanity from the threat of deadly human-devouring titans. You can operate the omnidirectional mobility gear, maneuver and fly through the sky to counter titans, and battle giant opponents. The way the story is told in this version of the game distinguishes itself from the base game by forcing you into the point of view of established characters for specific chapters. chapters. This means you can't play through any of them with your created character from the base game. On the bright side, there is about 8 hours worth of new content that you'll find in the Final Battle DLC, and you'll learn new credits and materials by completing these main and side missions. They've also introduced ranged weapons, which really opens up the strategy you can use while battling the Titans. And the new territory recovery is an awesome Dynasty Warriors style mode, which really enhances the game's best mechanics. However, this mode is actually locked behind the main campaign progression, which kind of sucks. This version of the game is definitely worth checking out if you don't already own Attack on Titan 2. Current market value of this game is $227. Next up, we've got Skylanders Imaginators. This is a Toys to Life game that was released in 2017. This was actually a launch title on the Switch, but it wasn't a brand new game at all when it came out. It had been released previously for the Wii U, however the Switch version did come with some significant upgrades and changes. For those of you who may have lived under a rock in the early to mid 2010s, Toys to Life is a video game feature which uses physical figurines or action figures to interact within the game. The toys use a near-field communicator radio frequency identification, wow, say that 10 times fast, which basically means that the figures have a chip in them, and when you tap them to the applicable bases, they'll show up in the video game. Skylanders Imaginators kind of veered away from its tried and true formula, which is coaxing players into buying a ton of these Skylander figures to unlock new characters in the game. Instead, they went the new route of being able to create your own characters in the game using a sophisticated creation tool. You can also tap in previously owned Skylander figures as well to help you progress in the game. This was actually the only Skylanders game available on the Nintendo Switch, so if you're looking to play with some Toys to Life on the Switch, this is your only way to go. Current market value of this game is $229. Next up, number 1, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. This is a platformer that was released in 2018. Here's another game that was not created specifically for the Nintendo Switch, as it was previously released back in 2014 for the Wii U and 3DS. Many hailed this as the best Shantae release to date. The game was first ported digitally, available on the Switch eShop, and then was later released physically by Limited Run Games. The story picks up right where Risky's revenge left off. Shantae has been stripped of her genie abilities and is attempting to fulfill the duty of town protector in the aftermath. Shantae's arch nemesis Risky Boots appears, although this time she isn't the main villain. Risky's old boss, the villainous Pirate Master, is using black magic and a diabolical plot to return from the grave. So Shantae and Risky form an uneasy partnership to defeat this mutual foe. First and foremost, this game is a Metroidvania, and the Shantae franchise has done a brilliant job with this style of game. Shantae primarily attacks with her long purple hair, but you'll also find a ton of consumable weapons to use. There are a few new additions in the Switch version. The game makes full use of the HD controller rumble, and there's also a fun arcade minigame which costs 10 gems to play in the upgrade store. You jump between sides to collect gems, and if you're good enough, you can make back much more than the 10 gems that you paid to play. The game's incredible. It has tight controls, vibrant and detailed visuals, a catchy soundtrack, and a charming and humorous story. If you haven't had the pleasure of playing Pirate's Curse yet, the Switch version is by far the best way to experience the game. And even if you have played it before, the new additions in the Switch version make it worth playing again. The current market value of this game is $442. What was your favorite game on the list? You can let us know down below. And also, if you have any ideas for future top 10s, you can let us know in the comments as well. We'll see you next time.